Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's going on, Fantasy Champs? Welcome on into the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Welcome back to the show. We're really, I say this every Thursday show because I feel like the other one goes really long. My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always, by the way. I feel like our shows go super long for the last couple months, and that's because this offseason has been whack.
There's been a lot to talk about.
9 head coaching changes. 9.
Yeah,
$1,000,007 trades and signings. It's just been the NFL's flipped upside down. This is a different kind of season. It's like
I know.
It's like you took the NFL and you shook it all around, like doing one of those fantasy
NBA
drafts
season
on Madden.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
Somebody fell asleep, went into a coma after playing fantasy football in December, and now they're waking up and they're like, "What the?" Tyreek Hill's on the Dolphins.
I'm gonna play some Madden. Why can't I use the Chiefs and where's Tyreek Hill?
Where's Tyreek Hill? Yeah. So that's no longer a thing anymore. But anyway, welcome on in. We are going to discuss the rookie running backs for 2022. The draft is coming up shortly. I think it's just 3 weeks away. So, we're coming up on it. I'm excited about the NFL draft, excited to see what happens, excited for the Patriots to rip my soul out and not take a wide receiver. We're going back to normal, Rick, for the Patriots, by the way, for the draft.
Yeah.
They did what we wanted to last year.
Now we're going to take a guard in the first round who's projected to go in the 5th round.
Yep, exactly. And he's probably going to be like Shaq Mason because that's how it works with the offensive lineman here in New England.
Yep.
Anyway, so we're going to talk about rookie running back. Should be an interesting show. We are going to try to keep it short and concise and get you in and out real quickly here because it's not necessary for us to talk about these rookies for 17 hours. So, with that being said, check our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I don't have the notes in front of me. I was trying to do it off the top of my head. Forgive me. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcast platforms, please leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. If you're listening on YouTube, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and like and comment down below any questions you have about these particular rookies. Let's start breaking down these top 5 rookie running backs.
Let's do it.
All right, so I think we are going to start. I think we did the wide receivers off Rick's list, so I think we're going to do it off mine.
Okay.
This time around. That makes sense. I do have a consensus somewhere around here. Maybe we can go off the consensus.
You want to do that instead?
Well, it's not a consensus.
What consensus
really.
though?
It's no consensus. Problem. All right, we'll just.
There's so many. Yeah. Okay.
So with this particular draft class of running backs, it's kind of like some people might disagree because, dynasty people are a little bit friggin' sweaty over players they shouldn't be sweaty over. It's kind of disgusting, to be honest with you. You guys need to have a little bit more diversity in your opinion.
What are you trying to say, bro?
I was saying people in the fantasy community aren't super critical
over rookies.
Yeah,
there are some that are, but yeah, there are definitely some that aren't.
Yeah. I'm like, guys, please. But anyway, so we are going to try to bring you some critical analysis on the running back position, and I would say that after the first 2 guys, there's pretty much no running backs that I really am super excited about, if they get drafted high in a good landing spot, it could be good.
Sure.
But if they don't get drafted high in a good landing spot, I will say this. The running back position, to preface, is the most important position when it comes to landing spot. There is guys that can be overtly talented that just take over a job. But I feel like running backs require a team that gives them a lot of work. Because if they don't get the work, they're not going to get the work.
I mean, look at Derrick Henry, who has always been great, but he just never had an opportunity to his third year in the league. So I do agree with you on that in terms of landing spots.
Sometimes a talented player is just a talented player and they take over, like Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I think obviously if you're a Jonathan Taylor level player and there's players out there like that, you're going to be good no matter what, no matter where you go. And it's about the player. But landing spots do help a lot.
Yeah. I personally don't see anyone in this class that is that.
There are some people that will disagree with you on
Yes,
that.
I know. the non-critical people. All right, so we'll start with the number one guy that we have on this list and try to keep it very, very clean.
You have.
Here. I have Kenneth Walker, who is my running back 1. And
he's my RB2.
Rick has him RB2. Now, I really like Kenneth Walker. I watched him on film, and I will say the difference, and obviously the second guy is Breese Hall because whatever.
You could have guessed that.
But anyway, so for me, when I look at these two players, I think they both are similar in a lot of ways, and they are pretty much even to me when it comes to this. I give Kenneth Walker the slight edge because when I was watching him, I didn't really see any physical problems with his rushing or receiving game, where I was like, okay, he definitely needs to improve there before he becomes a running back 1. But this guy is 210 pounds, 5'10", fits the mold there. He's not a one-year wonder like some people would imagine he is. He does everything really well. He can handle a workhorse role in the NFL, and he's an all-around dynamic player. So he can do everything pretty well. There was one game in 2020 against Miami where I believe he broke 20 tackles.
It's ridiculous.
It's absurd. Now, his one issue is pass protection, and if he wants to see a clear workhorse role in the NFL where he's going to be out there for every single down, he has to improve the pass protection portion of his game. But he can win in so many different ways, whether it's power, speed, or elusiveness. He can do all of it, and he's a decent pass catcher as well. Even though he didn't get a lot of opportunity in college to do it, I'd love to see where Kenneth Walker goes. I believe he ran a 4.3 something. Hold on, I'm looking.
He ran a 4.38.
So he's a little bit on the faster side, which is good, and he's also got decent power. So I think he does everything well. He excites me a lot as a running back, and he definitely is. I don't think he's going to go in the first round. I don't think any running back's going in the first round this year, but I think he could definitely be a second-round pick. And if he gets taken by the right team, if he gets taken by the Buffalo Bills or somebody of that, I would start getting a little bit sweaty, and he's obviously going to go off the board really high. But I have him 101 because I don't think, or number 1 in my running back rankings because I don't think that. I think Breese Hall has a few things that he needs to clean up, but that's just me. So there's Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, I still like Kenneth Walker a lot. I told you a couple of reasons why before the show and how I was really high on him a while ago when he was the consensus RB3.
Yeah.
And now he's the consensus RB2 or even 1 for some people. So I feel less high on him, but I still do really like the player. I think if he goes in a great landing spot, he's going to be great. You said it. He does a lot of things really well. He's explosive. Mm-hmm. He's kind of the prototypical size. His college denominator rating is 99th percentile, which is literally the best of the best. He had an amazing season, especially on the ground. There's not really many negatives in his game. As you said, pass protection is a small negative nitpick. I think receiving is more of a nitpick, but it's also more of a concern at the same time, if that makes sense. Because, yes, we've seen him have receiving moments where it doesn't seem like there's too many flaws in his receiving game. Like if he's on the ball in space, he'll catch it. Mm-hmm. But he just did it so little where it could cause a problem as well. Yeah. So it could be a nitpick or it could be a problem. I think it's at least something that you need to keep your eye on because he had 20 targets this past season. I believe it was 20. Yeah, he had 20 targets and only 13 catches for 89 yards. So that's kind of not what you want from a guy who's your RB1 in the draft. Mm-hmm. I think that's a bigger concern to me than the concern about Breese Hall. So that's why I have those two prospects flipped. But they're both very good prospects, and I think Kenneth Walker will be a second round pick, like you said, and we'll see where his landing spot is. But he's a good player.
I would say too, there have been, running backs in the NFL who have translated to the NFL and added a pass catching aspect of their game, because it's just not something that the team that they were playing for in college does.
Sure.
And so it might just be something in their system that they don't throw it to the running back position, and it's just not something that they do. Like the Baltimore Ravens, right? We all love J.K. Dobbins, but there's a history with Lamar Jackson not throwing it to the running back position. And that's not necessarily the whole offensive situation for, the Ravens, but that's just something that they don't do. So it's like if Michigan State is not a team that likes to throw it to the running back position, then that would explain why he didn't get a lot of opportunity. Now, I will say if you pace this out to, a larger size, it's still not a lot of catches, but it's not like he's completely worthless in the passing game either. So I think, he would be somewhere around like 20 catches, which is better than, most would be. Like Derrick Henry gets like 5 catches on the year. So, anyway.
Yeah, well, okay. I mean, that's fair. I mean, Derrick Henry gets more than 5. But yes, I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Sometimes, though, it doesn't always translate. Sometimes if you're not a good pass-catching running back, you stay that way. But sometimes, it is just a situation that you're in. And you can always improve on it as well. So it's not a huge knock on Kenneth Walker, but it is something that I think is at least something to note.
All right, let's move on to the next guy, Breese Hall, who's number 2 on my list, number 1 on Rick's list. And I, like I said, there's not too much that separates these two guys. They both do everything really well. Breese Hall has had more pass catching opportunity. The one thing I will say is, and you have to take PFF's rushing grades with a grain of salt. Sometimes PFF's grades in general, people question or not question, but they use them on the big TV networks during the games. So I believe in them. At least when it comes to scouting players for whatever reason. It helps a guy who doesn't watch the college football season analyze a little bit easier. But anyway.
That's fair.
Breese Hall was 86, 84, and 73, which basically ranks out at 33rd this year, 28th in 2020, and 86th in 2019 in the entire country. Kenneth Walker, the last 2 years, graded at 89 and 87, which was 89th which was 18th in the country and 19th in the country the last 2 years.
So neither guys were top 10 runners in the country?
No.
So interesting.
Guy. According to the PFF grade, at least.
Yeah.
So anyway, but he does a lot. He's big. He's 220, 6'1". He's a 4-star recruit coming out of high school. He was expected to be a really good player, and he was a really good player. He's gotten large workloads, so he can be a workhorse. One thing that I love when it comes to the running back position is the contact balance. This is something that I talk about with Alvin Kamara. When somebody hits him, he has really good balance when somebody hits him. So that means that he's either going to break a tackle or he's not going down easy. And that is essentially what Breese Hall does. He does a really good job with his contact balance. He wins, and he has an absolute refusal to go down, like when he's rushing. He does not have the same speed as Kenneth Walker does. He's a little bit slower, but he's still agile. He's got good vision. He's got good hands. The one thing that I will say is that he runs tall, and it's because he is 6'1", and running backs are usually like 5'10", 5'11". Now, Rick told me that on another site he saw that he's 5'11". Is that true?
Player Profiler has him as 5'11".
Okay. So, I mean, from what I've read and seen, he does run a little bit high, and he's easy to cut down just because of that situation, but he does everything really well. There's not really something that I can look and be like, this guy, stinks at this particular thing. And honestly, pre-draft, these guys are basically, it's like 1A, 1B for me. It's not even like 1, 2. So it just depends on landing spot, and hopefully he gets a good landing spot.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. I think it's similar for me. Breece Hall is my number one guy, though. I mean, his advanced metrics are just ridiculous. His workout metrics are ridiculous. He's everything you want in a running back. He's got the size. You say that Walker's faster. I mean, you're picking at straws there because it's a 4.38 versus a 4.39. It's a tenth of a second difference. They're pretty much the exact same speed, and Hall is bigger. He had a higher speed and burst score. College denominator wasn't as good as Walker's, but it was up there, 95th percentile. Again, and as a runner, the height thing is the only real criticism I think you could give him, and even that is like Derrick Henry, Ezekiel Elliott. Like, there's plenty of guys who are taller than Breece Hall that run kind of like that, and that's also something you can fix. Just tell the guy to lower your shoulder more. I mean, that's really all it is. But as a runner, he does everything well. He's the best pure running back, I think, in this draft class. And what he does better than Walker, I think, is, first of all, his size, but also his pass catching ability. 36 receptions this year for over 300 yards. He was their pass catching back through 12 games, as well as the workhorse with 253 rushing attempts. He had 23 touchdowns too. I mean, just a monster season for him. His breakout age, 18 years old. He's been considered the top guy for this draft class for the last 2 years. You know, people that played Devy were looking at the 2022 class 3 years ago and 2 years ago saying Breece Hall will be the number one running back. And he hasn't done anything to really damage that.
Right.
He's been consistently good. His player comp is Jonathan Taylor, and I'm not telling you he's Jonathan Taylor, but he's just like a really solid all-around back. And that's why he's my number one guy. I do think there are some people on Twitter who are a little too high on him. I saw Dynasty rankings the other day where he was the RB2 before even being drafted in the NFL. And that is real.
In Dynasty?
Yes, the RB2. God. So there are a couple people who are definitely
they got to step off
a little too high on him. Yeah. But depending on his landing spot, I could really, really be a fan of Breece Hall. And to be honest, with this rookie class, if you're talking in terms of dynasty, and depending on what your team looks like, I wouldn't mind taking him at the 1-on-1 if he gets a good landing spot. Like, let's say he goes to Buffalo.
Class.
I mean, you need
depends on landing spot, like you said, and if there's a bunch of running backs, like 3 or 4 that running backs get drafted in the first couple rounds, then I think you could definitely be like, all right, there's a little bit more flexibility here, but it's starting to look like if your need was running back and that's all you need to compete for a championship, this is probably not the greatest year to have that pick. So I would honestly just trade it away for a running back. But anyway.
Yeah. But like, would you compare, because I'm kind of in a spot like this in the league, and I decided so far at least to keep the pick. But like, you're essentially trading Breece Hall for like Joe Mixon. Who would you rather have in Dynasty? You know, I don't know yet, but depending on landing spot, it could be Breece Hall.
Yeah, could be Breece Hall. Honestly, it might be Breece Hall for me, just because of that age.
So
but anyway,
it depends on what you could get. But.
Right. Let's move on to the next guy, who is Isaiah Spiller. Both of us have him 3. It was funny because I told Rick prior to the show when we were prepping that this guy was somebody that I watched tape on, and I had ranked. He was the 3rd guy I watched film on, and I had ranked a couple of guys, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to put him 5 for right now because I'm not excited. And then I saw the rest of the running backs, and I was like, this is not good. And so Spiller ended up being 3rd on my list because there's just a lack of a better option. Right now, he is projected as a 4th round pick. It literally, if you go on PFF and you see his player profile, it says Spiller may not have high-end traits, but he has a complete NFL skill set. And that is true. He does nothing really, really amazingly. He's versatile. He has a very specific role where he can use his size and his pedigree to handle an every down role. But he's better fit in a gap scheme where, you know, he's allowed to be a little bit overly patient because he has trouble making decisions and indecisiveness running the ball. I think, you know, he's shown that he wants to improve. He dropped 10 pounds after his sophomore year to become more elusive. So there's good there.
Like,
but one thing that is really concerning to me is that he lacks long speed. So he gets into the second level of the defense, and linebackers start chasing him. He can't outrun them. And that is the biggest concern for me with Isaiah Spiller is his speed. He ran a 4.6 at his pro day. He ran a 4.6 at the combine. He just doesn't have the speed, I think, of an elite RB1 in the NFL, a guy who's going to be able to get big carries. I think he could be a decent RB2 on a team, but I don't think that there's going to be a situation where he's going to be able to use his speed or elusiveness or agility to beat people. He's a little bit more powerful of a running back, but I'm concerned about some of those aspects of his game. He is also 6'1", 215. I haven't seen on tape the problems with running tall, but they have said that he does get chopped down easier than you'd like by tackling him at the legs. So I'm not excited about Isaiah Spiller at all. This is a landing spot running back for me. If he ends up getting drafted by, a team like the Bills, right?
Good spot, yeah.
I'm okay with that. I'll be 100% okay with taking him in rookie drafts, and he'll probably even shoot up boards in redraft as well. But this is a guy I'm not very excited about, and it's kind of sad because this is the third running back in the class.
I know. I mean, last year we were talking about our RB3s, and for me it was Travis Etienne, who this year I think would be 1,000% better than Isaiah Spiller. But Spiller he was decent in college.
Mm-hmm.
He was a top 10 recruit coming out of high school. The speed is just the thing that kills me, man. And his workout metrics on Player Profile are so bad. Mm-hmm. And it's not just the speed; it's his speed score and burst score is so much lower than a guy like Breese Hall and Kenneth Walker.
Yeah.
Who I'm not even the super analytic guy, but those are noticing. The college denominator, same thing, 48th. He did have a good young breakout age, so that's good. But he never had a dominant season. Like Breese Hall had 2 dominant seasons, and Kenneth Walker this past season. And you could actually say Kenneth Walker also had 2 dominant seasons because he only played in 7 games in 2020. So those guys had 2 dominant seasons.
Yeah.
I don't feel like Isaiah Spiller had quite the level of dominance as those guys. Maybe in 2020 he was close. He only played in 10 games, so his numbers were really good. But this past season, like, he wasn't as dominant, I feel like, as those guys. Now he didn't have the same workload in terms of carries, but still. I think that's noticeable. Obviously, the speed, the 4.64 is just not good at all. I think speed is kind of important for a running back, unless you're built like Rahammed Stevenson or Derrick Henry, and you're just bulldozer. Like, and you play that kind of role.
Stevenson? What
did I say?
You said Rahammed Stevenson.
Oh, whatever.
Ramondre.
Either way,
he's in the Pats, bro.
I know. How can I mess up a Patriots player? See, now I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, sorry.
So he's not that kind of guy where he is physical, but he's not as physical as those players. So I don't know. I think he's still a good running back and he's a good prospect.
He has a role in the NFL. He
has a role in the NFL and he is a good runner. He's a very good runner.
Yeah.
So if he gets in a good landing spot, you could see success there. I just don't know if he's going to be like a top 5, top 10 guy.
Okay, fair enough. Let's move on to the next guy who is both our number 4 guy, Rashad White. And this guy is this is also another interesting running back. He's a 4th round projection again. He's a little bit of a project running back. And
which you don't want to say for a 23-year-old.
Yes, which is what you don't want to say for a 23-year-old. He has a little bit of a unique running style, and it needs to be reined in a little bit, but he definitely is a playmaker. He graded out at 90, which was number 7 in the country this year. Very, very good numbers for Rashad White. The concerns here for me are very, very prevalent. He's a good, he's a very, very good pass catching back. He wins when he has space, and that's good news because he has good hands. So if he catches the ball, you can get him out in space and he can make plays. He kind of reminds me a little bit of a slower Kenyon Drake, and he's probably going to have a third down role in the NFL, similar to like what James White had, pass catching / third down role. There's also some rumors floating around that this could be a player that converts to wide receiver. We heard these similar comps to a guy by the name of Antonio Gibson when he came out.
Sure.
So this could be a guy that he has a lot of work to do to the rushing side of his game. He has a polished receiving portion of his game, but outside of that, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how he's utilized in the running game, because he doesn't have a ton of, like, he literally on PFF, you look at the position traits grades, he has 2 out of 10 when it comes to vision. That's not very good. So he's a little bit concerning of a player, but I do like the pass catching upside.
Yes.
Looking at the rest of the backs in this class, like there's no one that really can take a workhorse role. So the guys that pass catch are going to be the ones that kind of excel at the next level. And I think it's a good thing for Rashad White. But if you can develop a rushing portion of his game, he could actually be relatively decent. Really depends on landing spot and what the role is. I could totally see a team that needs a pass catching running back sliding in and grabbing this guy in the third, fourth round.
Yeah, I like White. I think he has some promise. I love the pass catching that you said. I think that's a big reason why I have him at 4. There is definitely, I feel like, a drop though after the top 2 guys. Yeah. You can even make the argument after Spiller.
It's like tier 1 Kenneth Walker, Breese Hall, tier 2 Spiller, tier 3 White and others. And
then there might be another drop off after White, to be honest.
Yeah,
because White kind of feels like and Spiller does too, like a third round pick. But yeah, he's got the pass catching. He's a good patient runner too. I liked what I kind of saw in film, and I believe his stats were pretty good in college, if I remember correctly. Yeah. In 11 games, so he had pretty good numbers. The age is kind of a concern for someone who, as you said, is a project back. Yeah. His player comp is David Johnson, which isn't too bad. His college denominator was pretty good as well. So he has some things going. I guess his advanced analytics are very good. Mm-hmm. There's this person on Twitter. So again, that's never a great start, but he's got 29,000 followers, so he's pretty popular. Kent Lee Plate, I don't shout out to you, but anyway, he said Rashad White is a running back prospect in the 2022 draft class. He scored a 9.87 RAS, which I don't know what that means, out of a possible 10. So this ranked 21st out of 1,500 running backs from 1987 to 2022. So I think this just basically takes into all your combine measurements, which includes hand size, arm size, broad jump, vertical, your bench press, your weight, height, like all the 40-yard dash, 20-yard splits, all the 3-cone shuttle, like literally everything. And just basically your production on that. And they think he's a top 20 back in the last 30 years based on just those metrics, obviously. So he tested really, really well. And yeah, he's a great pass catching back. So those are two very important things. So I do like White, but he's just not anything special. I don't feel like on the ground.
Yeah, like literally in 3 years, he's already going to be too old to be. So it's
that
like,
too.
It might even be somebody that I move further down just based on his age. Like it's tough.
Yeah, he's someone who has to pop right away.
Yeah,
where he's like Keyshawn Vaughn. Remember all the hype with Keyshawn Vaughn, and now he's like a 25-year-old backup running back in his second year.
Sheesh, that's ridiculous. Yeah, so it's going to really depend on where he lands. If he lands in a situation where he's a second or third running back, it's going to be a lot of situational stuff. So I might even move him down. But anyway, let's move to the final guys that we're going to talk about, and that's my 5, which is Damian Pierce, and Rick's 5, which is James Cook. I'm interested to see Rick's thoughts on James Cook because I do like him a lot, but I didn't rank him there just because, or at least in my top 5 because I don't know. He seems more like another one of those project backs, but on the younger side. And he's like Rick has referred to him as a dart throw. And I agree with that.
That is what
but anyway, so my number 5 is Damian Pierce. And he actually is ranked as the 3rd running back on PFF.
Yes.
His big concern is that he did not carry a massive workload at Miami. He had 100 carries in 2021, 106 carries in 2020, 54 in 2019. He's never carried a full workload. The efficiency kind of isn't great. In 2020, he had 106 yards for 501 carries, which is 4.7 yards per attempt, which is pretty good in the NFL. In college, that sucks. That's not good. So he did improve this year, almost got up to 6 yards a carry in 2021, which is good. That obviously had a really good improvement. He also graded at a 93, which was 92, which is number one in the country when it came to the rushing grade. So he has a lot of effectiveness there. He's projected as a 4th-round pick, but people have pegged him as a non-bell cow candidate. So he's not going to be a workhorse running back in the NFL just based on what people have seen. It doesn't mean he's necessarily not going to be that, but because he hasn't gotten the workload, people are more concerned about that translating into the NFL. He does consistently break tackles, which is good. He wins with his strength, so his power, but he also provides some agility. He, being a timeshare back, doesn't have a lot underneath him. So, you can say it's a good thing. You can say it's a bad thing. I would say it means he's not going to get hurt 5 seconds into his career.
Michael Carter was like that too, and he had a pretty good rookie year. So.
Say it again. What's his name?
Michael Carter.
Yeah, Michael Carter. He has a tough, stiff arm, low center of gravity, so he can stop and cut on a dime, and he's 215 pounds of pure muscle. People have referred to him as an armored vehicle. So, yeah, I like this player a lot, but the workload is what scares me. He doesn't have a lot of speed either. So those two things are more like concerning than I think as he gets into the NFL, it's going to be something that he needs to work on. But I think out of all of the top 5 running backs we just talked about, outside of the top 2, this guy does have another chance. Like we just talked about Rashad White, and it would be very, very, very unlikely for him to be a workhorse running back in the NFL, whereas I think Pierce can be a workhorse in the right situation. It just depends on if he gets drafted as such. So, and there's a chance that could happen. I think he has the best chance of the 5 running backs, not the best chance of the 5 running backs, but the best chance of the last 2 or 3 that we talked about of getting a workhorse role in the NFL.
He definitely has a better chance than the guy I'm going to talk about.
Yes.
1,000%.
And I agree with Rick. I like James Cook, but I think Damon Pierce has a better opportunity of taking that. But anyway, Rick, why is James Cook your number 5?
Yeah, quickly on Pierce, real quick. I do like him as well, and I think he's a really solid runner, really strong, like you were saying. He's probably 6 or 7. It's just, dude, he's pretty much a 4.6, and he's also 23 years old. And it's like basically what the other guy we talked about. And if he goes in the 4th round, and like, it's just, I don't know, the odds of it happening are low, but it's possible. Yeah, the guy, and the reason I have this guy at 5 is just because I feel like he's got a guaranteed role in the NFL, or close to it at this point, because the running backs, this class is not good. I'll say that. But it's James Cook, the brother of Dalvin Cook. Yeah. He's pretty elusive. He ran a 4.42, so he's got the speed. He fits the profile of a 3rd down back in the NFL. Yep. And he kind of played a pretty good role. I mean, he wasn't a full workhorse in Georgia, not even close, but he did get a lot of carries. But he also had the 27 receptions, and was heavily involved in the passing game for Georgia. So that is something that I liked with James Cook. He's good with the ball in his hands. He's actually a decent pass blocker, although in the NFL, weighing 199 pounds, I don't know if that's going to continue. He needs to put on weight.
Imagine him trying to block Aaron Donald.
Yeah, it wouldn't happen. It would be a pancake. But he has the ability to make stuff happen with the ball in his hands. Good pass catcher. I just feel like there's a role for him in the NFL, right? Yep. And at this point, as the RB5, and I'm drafting a dart throw in like the 3rd round, if I can get a James White level running back in my rookie drafts in the mid-late 3rd round, that's fine. I'll do that. Or even 4th round, I'll do that. which is where he's kind of going in rookie drafts. He's like a early fourth round pick. So he's probably the guy I would want to take a flyer on at this point with the running backs, just because I think what I'm getting with him. I think Pierce has more upside for sure, and there's other guys that have more upside in terms of like they could be a workhorse, but I just feel like there's also equally as chance that they're like practice squad players or not in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree. He definitely has. He can win by hitting home runs. Essentially, he's light and quick, and he can blaze past linebackers. So if he gets to the second level and you miss him, he's gone. So I think he does have some upside, and he does have a role in the NFL. It just depends on, like, he's small. He's really, really small. So he kind of reminds me a little bit of Naheem Hines. And so, like, I don't know if there's going to be, like, massive upside for him to be an RB1. But like Rick said, dart throws are the big ones, especially in Dynasty. And if you're in the third, fourth round, especially if this guy gets drafted, like if he gets drafted where people think he is in the fourth or fifth round, and he goes to a team that, you know, where he could carve a rollout for himself, it could lead to good things. And I think it's a good third or fourth round dart throw in the rookie drafts to see where he goes. So I like the player a lot too. I have him like 6 or 7 because there's other guys that I do like. But anyway, there is your top 5. Well, we got through it pretty quickly, I would say. Pretty good.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Decent. But there you have it. My top 5: Kenneth Walker, Breese Hall, Isaiah Spiller, Rashad White, Damian Pierce. Rick, what do you got?
Oh my gosh, I just took out the list. But it was Breese Hall, Kenneth Walker, Isaiah Spiller, Rashad White, and James Cook.
There you go. We'll see you next week, guys.
Later, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.